when you're buying a horse, you're buying it for a specific reason. So a horse having a great 1 furlong, 2 furlong work, if you're looking for 2-turn dirt horses, if that horse is built to be a sprinter, well, then you just have to accept that you're going to buy a horse that's a sprinter. Things that might put me off when I go look at a horse. As I said, when these horses get into a training environment, the stress that is placed on them to make it to the races is far more than they receive when they're getting ready for a 2-year-old sale. So they have to have a conformation that I feel will hold up to that rigors of racing and training for racing to make it out the other side. So we can be 100% honest here. There's a lot of horses that don't make it to the races. There's a lot of yearlings that don't make it through a 2-year-old sale until some make it through a late 2-year-old sale. There's a lot of 2-year-olds that come out of the 2-year-old sales that don't make it to the races. A lot of people want to say, well, the 2-year-olds out of the 2-year-old sales don't make it to the races because the 2-year-old sales are so hard on them that they can't come back from it. That's not necessarily true. It depends on who's consigning. It depends on who's prepping. There's a lot of phenomenal people out there that do a great job. Those horses go onward no problem. It's down to the individual athlete. And there's a lot of horses that just aren't meant to make it to the next stage. They don't have the proper conformation, whether it's a weak hock that they can't push off of, so they get sore behind, and then once they get sore behind, they put too much weight in front. Or a light-boned horse that was able to hold up and get to the 2-year-old sales, but now that you're asking them every time you get the horse up to a half mile at buck shins. I mean, I've had a horse actually once, luckily when I trained, shins were not a problem in our barn. We prepped horses in a certain way once they came in the barn that we rarely ever had a horse buck a shin, but we did have one that bucked his shins 3 times. He bucked him at 2. We gave him time off. He bucked him again at 3. We gave him time off, and we gelded him, and we brought him back at 4. He bucked him again slightly at 4. And then all of a sudden, as we started training that horse and we got him through the 4-year-old shin process, he then started having bony issues in his knee. So that was just a horse that had bony problems. Did he make it to the races? Yes. Did his bony issues that held him back from being the horse he could have been? Absolutely. So I'm looking for conformation and sturdiness and strength at a 2-year-old sale that will help me understand that if I'm going to spend the money that it costs. And here's the biggest thing at a 2-year-old sale, and you can throw any stat at me and say, well, this horse was less, this horse was less. If you want a good horse at a 2-year-old sale, don't come with a budget any less than $150,000. Most of these horses were bought as yearlings for upwards of $50,000. They're not going to let a good horse go, especially if it's a solid horse. They're not going to let it go for anything less than $150,000. So you need to understand that if you want to walk in with a good horse that you can, meaning you can win a maiden special weight, potentially an allowance, and maybe have a chance at a stake, you need $150,000. Otherwise, you could potentially be spending a lot of money to have a very good claiming horse. So that's one thing that I try and look at in terms of when we go back to the barn. The horse needs to have a frame that I know will hold up to the rigors of racing and training.